Please welcome the Honorable Patricia Kenneth-Divine, Director at the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy in the United Kingdom, President of the Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network, and Coordinator at the Afro-Protocol Initiative promoting and driving the protocol agenda in Africa. She is a champion for diversity and inclusion, promoting a transformation agenda and promoting young people in protocol, and the founding president of the Association of Certified Protocol Practitioners in Nigeria. She has over 15 years' experience as an international trade advisory and business development leader, promoting partnerships and investment between the UK, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Previously, she worked at the Department of International Trade as an international trade advisor for sustainability and energy. She also has served as the principal consultant at Synergy Systems Consultants, international trade advisory firm. Please join us in welcoming the Honorable Patricia Kenneth-Divine. Nicoletta Hosho is a University Associate Professor, founder of the World Protocol magazine, founding member of the World Protocol Organization, President of the Association of International Protocol Professionals, founder of the Protocol and Diplomacy Exhibition, course founder of the International Protocol Professional, author of 6 academic books, and Chief of Protocol at the Government, Sport, Business, and Academic Events. Please join us in welcoming Nicoletta Hosho. LaDonna L. Myers is the founder and CEO of the recently launched Myers & Associates, LLC. She has more than 20 years of experience as a trusted advisor to state, military, academia, and corporate executives on national and international engagement strategies. Experience in analyzing, developing, and implementing corporate operational and administrative functions, LaDonna currently serves as the Director of the Mission Support Office for Headquarters of the United States Space Force in Washington, D.C., where she is responsible for establishing and implementing all support services for the new military service and oversees the organization's human capital, facilities, knowledge management, acquisition, and resourcing activities. Prior to this, LaDonna held a number of leadership positions within the Department of Defense for the U.S. Army and U.S. Air Force. In 2016, she served as the Chief Joint Visitors Bureau for Multinational Exercise Anaconda 16 in Warsaw, Poland, where her international protocol expertise was sought to conceptualize, coordinate, and design complex engagement strategies for dozens of world leaders, evaluating the event that hosted nearly 25,000 participants from more than 20 countries. Please join us in welcoming LaDonna L. Myers.
Introducing the organizers.
Welcome to the 2022 World Protocol Matters virtual conference. This conference will work to bring positive change to hundreds of protocol professionals from all across the globe as we work to bring the spotlight on this profession that we all so love.
Welcome to World Protocol Matters 2022 online conference. As organizing partners representing World Protocol Magazine and World Protocol Organization, we invited protocol experts and diplomats to discuss World Protocol matters.
As organizers of this event, the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy considers this conference as a place where we take action, create a positive change, and move forward, making protocol visible. Let's make this happen.
Welcome to the World Protocol Matters Online Conference 2022. This conference covers all continents, over 40 countries represented, over 30 potential speakers. Our vision: achieve global understanding and cooperation. Declare May 11th as World Protocol Day. Value and productivity.
Welcome to World Protocol Matters Online Conference.
Bienvenue à la conférence en ligne World Protocol, ça compte.
World Protocol Matters Online Conference. Giving voice and visibility to the world of protocol.
Conférence en ligne World Protocol, ça compte. Donner de la voix et de la visibilité au monde de protocole.
6 continents, hundreds of professionals, over 30 speakers.
6 continents, des centaines de professionnels, plus de 30 orateurs.
Great networking opportunities.
Une possibilité unique de mise en réseau.
Bringing possibilities.
Apporter des opportunités.
Be part of the global drive.
Faites partie du Global Drive.
World Protocol Matters.
World Protocol, ça compte.
Greetings, my name is Maria Shadrova, coming to you from Ramstein Air Base, Germany. Welcome to the Protocol World Matters virtual conference, contributing to the achievement of diplomatic and political goals.
Hello, I'm Donna Myers, coming to you from the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Welcome to World Protocol Matters Conference.
The World Protocol Matters Online Conference is focused at bringing high visibility for the protocol profession, and we are so excited that this is happening.
Our vision is to reach global support and to achieve recognition for protocol by marking a special date in the calendar, declaring 11th of May as World Protocol Day.
Welcome to World Protocol Matters Online Conference.
The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network is an initiative of the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy. Our vision is giving protocol a bigger voice and increasing visibility. More than 40 countries to participate from Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, Oceania, Atlantica.
Of economic development and transition of global interest, we must recognize that protocol and diplomacy plays a significant role in global growth. The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network embraces diversity and inclusion, promotes visibility, and discuss global solutions. Let's succeed together.
Hi, my name is Verona, coming to you from the beautiful Botanical Gardens here at University of Berkeley in sunny California, creating opportunities for global interactions among diverse protocol and diplomatic professionals around the world. Our vision is making protocol great.
The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network gives access to a global network of professionals, diplomats, protocol practitioners, and influential connections, and a platform that accelerates diversity and inclusion.
I always wanted to be in an inclusive and diversified environment where you have the right opportunities to networking, learn and discuss solutions that will enhance the protocol and diplomatic world. The global protocol and diplomatic network is bringing a positive change.
The global protocol and diplomatic network is the new big vision.
Today's program is really going to be interesting. I have Ladona here with me and Nicolita here with me, who are going to be moderating this event, and it's quite so interesting to see many people across the world who's logged on this morning. And just to say, we are sorry if you're having difficulties logging in. We're sorting that in a moment, and I'm sure that you'll be able to access this group. Ladona, how do you feel today? I know today is really quite interesting, and we're looking forward to the speakers. Before we get into that, just a word from you and a word from Nicolita.
Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Once again, welcome to the World Protocol Matters online conference. We are just so excited to have everyone here. This has been a long time dream for us, I'm sure for many of you, to have a forum and an opportunity to connect with other protocol and diplomatic leaders from just all across the globe. I'm so excited just watching all of the hellos from everyone coming from Kenya, Oman, Iraq, just all over the world actually, and all over the globe. So welcome and thank you. I'll turn it over to Nicolita, who will then introduce our first speaker. Thank you.
First of all, let me welcome you all to the World Protocol Matters 2022 online conference. It is a dream come true. And first of all, I would like to thank my fellow organizers to put this amazing event together in such a short notice and in such a short time, because this is seriously our dream come true. This is to celebrate our beloved profession. This is for us protocol professionals and for the future generations that we train and teach at universities and training programs, for those who will dedicate their lives for leaders in diplomacy, in business, in sports, in military. So this event is aiming to elevate this profession and put the professionals into spotlight for a change, and show the world that the work and the job of protocol professionals are so important, especially today, nowadays, in the times of pandemic and wars. This is where we need to bring peace and make sure that the communication is flawless and peaceful between countries, different organizations and high-level leaders. So once again, thank you very much for joining us to the World Protocol Matters 2022 online conference. We are hoping, together with my co-organizers, that next year we are going to have the chance to meet in person and organize this event physically. And I would like to now introduce our very first speaker. So ladies and gentlemen, introducing SalwaSahloul from Tunisia, head of mission in the head of government. Just a short introduction and bio for our first speaker. After her master's degree from the military academy, she worked at the Ministry of National Defense for 15 years. Later, she was transferred to the Ministry of Women's Affairs as a ministerial advisor and worked as head of protocol and public relations. During the first General Assembly of the African Union's FemWise Africa Network in 2017, Salwa was chosen among the first 50 African mediators to participate in mediation and prevention of conflict missions in the African continent. In 2018, she was promoted to the rank of major and obtained the military decoration. At the 47th General Assembly of the United Nations, Salwa was selected to be one of the 20 women mediators of the Global Alliance of Regional Networks of Women Mediators. Last year, she was recognized as one of the most influential women in the field of mediation in the Mediterranean region by the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network. So, ladies and gentlemen, now I give the floor to the Honorable SalwaSahloul, and her topic will be Protocol, Challenges, and Horizons. Salwa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Mrs. Patricia, Mrs. Ladonna, Mrs. Nicoletta. Three powerful women who done such a huge event. Thank you. Good morning for all speakers and honorable participants in this session. As Nicoletta said, I have 20 years of practicing of protocol, from the Ministry of Defense to the Ministry of Women to the head of government. So we can talk about protocol, but let me tell you a secret. Protocol is not a matter of today. The relation between Egypt and Babel in 1040-50 before Jesus Christ, we started protocol by installation of rules of protocols and humanity and diplomatic humanity between these two huge civilizations, between Egypt and Babel. So the protocol was established before this decades or this centuries. But we talk now about protocol. Why? Because there are many states gives the chief of protocol the power to decide and to lead the president to get the good image, the supremacy, because protocol is not only the matter of being beautiful or having the rules of etiquette, of good saying or a good presentation. No, protocol is about supremacy, is about dignity of status. So when I talk about challenges of my mission as head of mission and chief protocol, I will talk to you about three major challenges: security challenges, logistic challenges, and etiquette and diplomatic challenges. When you practice protocol, it's not only the organization of events or organization of audience or of meeting between two heads of states or two presidents. No, it's about long process of proper preparation. We prepare security rules between our state guest, head of a state guest and his delegation, and our team. So there is many papers to prepare, many code to prepare. It's not easy. You have to be aware of all your steps, because only such mess or only such fault can destroy relations between two presidency and between two states. So the chief protocol has a sensitive and very crucial mission. So we have to be very awareness, very intelligent, and very connected with all your team, with your external neighbors, your external, I don't know what to say, external institution you will collaborate with. So there is other challenges, logistic challenges. As you know, without logistic and without financement, you can't succeed any mission. And for the protocol, you have a big logistic and financement to succeed your rules. Because when you go to official mission, you have to have your gifts between presidents. You have to prepare also the logistic ways of collaborating with our partners, and you have all the financement to ensure the dignity of your authority. Other matter is about etiquette and diplomatic. A protocol chief decides on diplomatic immunity and privileged diplomatic, host security, diplomatic use of airspace also, and it's the guardian of official etiquette. I repeat, the chief of protocol, he is the guardian of official etiquette. He haven't to miss any rules. So being in such, I don't have the right word, but I will say that such hard work and hard mission to avoid dismiss of etiquette, to ensure the respect between partners, not only partners, we speak about diplomacy, we speak about head of missions, we speak about head of missions in diplomatic representativity, we speak about presidents. Last month, I have conducted to collaborate with the presidency of France to prepare mission between two presidencies. So it's about my job, but as professional, I can tell you some secret of my job. When you don't have a mission of precursor, we can't succeed your mission. So I have with my team and the team of security and the team of communication to go to France to see how the mission that will be step by step. It's so sensitive. So from the airport to the honor, so to the salon of honor, to the presidency of France in Matignon, in Paris, to the room of conference, to the ceremony of give and take gift. It's so sensitive. So I went with my team for mission of precursor. So if you don't do this mission, you will miss all your mission. So to ensure you succeed, you have to be disciplined, you have to be punctual in time as protocol chief, and you have to be in details. You go in details. Even the share, we will examine the share where the president will stay, the paper, all these details. So the details of also security will be defined between our two departments, the French department and the Tunisian department. So when we prepare all this mission, we have to be aware of all the climate, the external climate and the internal climate. So some challenges is very, very crucial, and you have to be attentive. I repeat, protocol is not only etiquette. It's going on details, good preparation, and good interference with your collaborator. And you have to be a good leader to succeed in your mission as protocol. You have to be a good leader. And believe me, when you are woman, I don't know if there are some women in our session who ensure the protocol mission. When you are woman, you have to double work. It is not easy to succeed as a woman in this crucial mission because you have all the eyes on you. You haven't the right to miss anything. You haven't the right to have the faults and to make mistakes. So it's a domain, it's a field was made for men, and now I invite all women to go on the field, on the ground, and to practice protocol, because it's a matter of prestige. It's a matter of solemnity. It's a matter of dignity. It's a matter of charisma. If you haven't the charisma, you can't give this charisma to your chief, because you represent this president, you represent this minister, you represent this authority, and you have to protect the dignity of the person you represent by respect, by charisma, by also discipline. The discipline is a key of success in the matter of protocol. There is so challenges, many of challenges. It's not easy, but we have to succeed. And there is constant rules in protocol. Matters of diplomatic collaboration, matters of etiquette, matters of verbal note, but there is some cases of improvisation. I don't know, La Donna or Patricia or Nicoletta had practiced it, but it's about 60% of improvisation. Why? Because we have some case of crisis, some case of sudden accident. And this is the matter of creativity. The chief of protocol have to be creative. He has to find the right solution, the right way to improvise, to succeed his mission, and to give this sudden accident a matter of successness, okay? He haven't the right to fail. So he have to be attentive, he have to be very improvisative, and he have to be in the incident. Lead her team, lead her chief, lead her president, or lead her minister to the beach, the safe beach. Now I will speak about horizons. I think that protocol have to be spread not only in presidency or in ministers or in foreign affairs. We have to be spread in all the big firms. All the big enterprise have to have the recruitment of chief of protocol. This is the way, I think, to improve their development. It's not a matter of public relations. It's a matter of public relations and chief of protocol. When you use a good chief of protocol, you ensure the development of your society, your enterprise. You have to work in this point, my dear colleagues. Implementing chief of protocol in civil action, in economic actions, because it's not a matter of etiquette, I repeat, it's a matter of improving and development of our institution. Also, other horizons. I think that the development of information technology and information management tools and resources have to be successfully used in protocol, because as you see, last years when we have COVID, our job as protocol was hurted. How? Because when you have this mission on the ground and we haven't these tools of information and IT, you can't succeed some of part of your mission, because we have the restriction of COVID. So I think that with this conference, we can establish a new projection of IT in protocols matters. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that my lecture was useful for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Salwa. It was a quintessential presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your exquisite expertise. I'm sure whatever you have emphasized is something that we are experiencing every day. And the point is that the gravity and the importance of the work of Chief of Protocol, no matter where they work around the world, is something really, really important. And the relationships between countries and states can depend on their work. So thank you again very much for this presentation. And I'm turning to the audience. What we have for you is the chat box. Should you have any questions for the speakers, you can submit your question in writing, and if we have time, we will turn to questions, and the speakers will have the chance to answer. And once again, welcome to World Protocol Matters Online Conference. I can see this is truly a global conference. We have participants from the United States, from Hungary, from Nigeria, from the Ivory Coast. I saw someone from Spain, from Kenya, from Egypt, Jordan, I can see, from the United Arab Emirates. So this is truly a global conference, and this was our mission to accomplish. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we are going to move on to the next speaker. LaDonna, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. The next speaker, I will turn it over to the Honorable Patricia Kenneth-Divine, and she will introduce our next speaker here from North America.
All right. Thank you, LaDonna. That was quite beautiful. And thank you, Honorable SalwaSahloul, for that beautiful presentation there. I just wanted to highlight one of the things she said before we move further. It's quite interesting that she's calling for women to be in this profession. So I think participants here today, make sure you take that on board. We want more women. We're talking about diversified and inclusion in terms of this industry. And I really want to highlight that we need to push in terms of how women really engage in this industry. I thought I should mention that again. So thank you, Honorable Salwa. So our next speaker is quite an interesting one. His name is Nelson Billington. And Nelson Billington is the account director, corporate director of the Belmont organization. He represents the group which have 46 iconic hotels, trains, and river cruises to companies and embassies and associations. They're quite really big. Nelson has also advised in big research programs in terms of customer relationship. He was also formerly director of clients and operations at the Miles Ahead, a luxury travel concierge. He's also done a lot of work in terms of travel and leisure. He's also featured in Travel Weekly and past speaker at the New York Times travel show. Nelson is quite very experienced, and he's going to share his experience today in terms of hospitality and protocol, and what's the relationship in that regard. He's going to really do a lot of justice to that. So Nelson graduated from the Cornell University School of Hotel Administration, and he is really going to tell us more today. I welcome Nelson Billington.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you all for joining us this morning, this evening. We're really happy that you're here. Got a little presentation that I'm going to share here. Before I start that, our last speaker, Honorable Salwa, had just so many great points to share. that I resonated with. So before I get into it, her points on security, logistics, and etiquette, I think are just so critical. They're critical in our hotels, and they're critical for the work that you do. So really want to touch on that a little bit more in my presentation here, and hope we can have some time afterwards to answer your questions as well. So I have a brief little video here. It's just 20 seconds long. It gives you a little overview of what we like to call the wonderful world of Belmond. I'm going to dive in a few minutes together to tell you a little bit about our collection, about the intersection of diplomacy and hospitality, and then really where we go from there, and how the two are really intersected. So we'll play this and we'll go from there. Terrific. Perfect. So Belmond, as was mentioned, we have 45 hotels, trains, and river cruises. We're very pleased to be a sponsor of this World Protocol Matters conference, and grateful for the opportunity to share with you all. Belmond has been around for a number of years. Our hotels are older and iconic. In 2019, Belmond was purchased by the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Group, which is a French luxury goods conglomerate. And when LVMH bought Belmond, they did so because they wanted to move into the experiences business. So many of you probably know LVMH for their handbags, for Tiffany jewelry, for Bulgari perfumes, or jewelry, for Rimowa luggage, and many of the different businesses that they are in. But when they came to buy Belmond, the idea was to really innovate on our heritage brand, which is LVMH's one of their great pillars. And together, over the last couple of years, Belmond and LVMH have come up with a shared vision for our company, which is to be the world's most desirable luxury travel brand. We define that in a number of different ways. And as I show you some pictures here, we're going to talk to that and kind of weave in this role of diplomacy and history into our company. So we start here. This picture here is our hotel in Santa Barbara, California, in the United States. For becoming the world's most desirable luxury travel brand, we really have to focus on our operations. As Honorable Salwa said, focusing on the details is so critical. Looking at how can we create guest experiences, no matter the case of why someone's staying in one of our hotels. If they're coming for a meeting, if they're coming for a retreat, they're coming with their family, we have to focus on creating experiences for them that matter to them and that they can't find anywhere else. It's using the physical spaces that we have, the gardens, the rooms, the food and beverage experiences to really tailor that, and to make it meaningful and a venue where people really want to gather. Becoming the world's most desirable luxury travel brand means continuing to invest in our assets, to ensure that they are safe and secure when people come and stay with us, that we have top of the line technology in our hotels. It means renovations and improvements, such here is our hotel in Lima, which is right in the central business district in the heart of Lima in Peru, this cosmopolitan city. Becoming the world's most desirable luxury travel brand means telling you, organizers of events, our history. Because really Belmond's history, the history of our properties, is the world's history. And so this storytelling element is very important to us, and hopefully will be helpful to you when you're working with our properties and convening meetings and getting to really work with us. Just sort of a few interesting things to share. This is our hotel here in London, the Cadogan, which is where Oscar Wilde was arrested. One of our hotels in Florence served as Napoleon Bonaparte's headquarters. One of our barges in France was seized by the Germans during World War II, taken to Corsica and used as a part of the war effort. Several of our properties are 12th, 13th, and 15th century monasteries, one with a fresco from Michelangelo on the exterior. So these are culturally significant buildings, and we see the venue very much as one part of our participation in the intersection of diplomacy and hospitality. This here is our hotel in Cape Town, the Mount Nelson. For us, food and beverage is also an incredibly important component, and this was something that Honorable Salwa spoke about as well. Is having a chef is one thing, but vetting that to the unique cultural differences and sensitivities of whomever is staying in the property is super important to us. It's creating international cuisine that appeals to people from across the world. Because really, we, at the very end of the day, need to make people feel comfortable so that they can convene a dialogue, so they can share ideas together. So the food and beverage element is another way that we must work to be the most desirable luxury travel brand. And this here is our hotel in Rio, the Copacabana Palace. And the sort of final element on becoming the world's most desirable luxury travel brand means becoming a venue for diplomatic professionals to convene meetings. We have in the past, but we have an opportunity to do that even more in the future. And to really learn from folks like yourself, which is part of the reason I'm so happy to be here, is there's so many takeaways that we can have learning from protocol and diplomatic professionals and understanding what's important. Because in each step of our customer journey, as we call it, learning what our customer needs are and building solutions based on those needs is how we get there. So really excited for what the future will hold. This hotel had a neat experience a couple of years ago during the Olympics in 2016. This served as the base for many of the VIPs that came to Rio and really was a gathering place for the city during that important world event. It cultivated relationships, friendships, and excitement for the city, which was something that we were really pleased to play a part in. And I think, we'll get to this in just a moment. So over the last couple of years with this COVID situation, the world has become more fractured, apart. People can't get along with one another. And I believe that some part of this is due to the lack of physical interaction. People are isolated, they're apart, and that builds polarization. And it's something that it's very sad and unfortunate. So I think the role of hospitality is to convene people together. You're not just a name, you're an email address, but really you're a human being. And we provide venues and people who can help cultivate those relationships. And I think our role, we take seriously in doing that, in really fostering dialogue that can create solutions and help people around the world. So I look at this sort of in three ways. People in hospitality, we welcome everybody into our doors, whether we own a restaurant, whether we're in the hotel business, whether we're a driver or a pilot, wherever we are in this ecosystem, we welcome people in from around the world. You don't have to be in a wealthy country to come into our doors. And we really take that equalizer of differences seriously, because we think when we accept people, when we welcome diversity across hospitality, people feel comfortable coming in and sharing their ideas. So we must continue to be that. We must continue to welcome people from around the world in our doors and do that fairly. Because when people come in and they feel comfortable, we give them an environment where we recognize the details, where we learn about their sense of what's important to them, religious, cultural, political, and we act on their unexpressed preferences and wishes. We allow them to change hearts and minds through our actions. We play a small role, but it's an important role in helping steward conversation and dialogue. And with that, hopefully, we help to change the world through building accords, building relationships and friendships, which I think is just so important. It doesn't always have to be in a formal meeting. It could be in a retreat. It could be in a one-on-one conversation. But our physical spaces, our people must work to really foster this dialogue. And we must do it all the time, realizing that it's not always something planned where accords can be brokered. So for those of you sort of less familiar with the travel and tourism space, I just thought I'd share a couple of stats here, which I think are quite, quite impactful. So in 2019, the travel and tourism business represented 10% of global GDP. So it was a $9.2 trillion industry, and we employed 300 plus million people. 334 million people were employed in travel and tourism across the world. And 1 in 4 new jobs in 2019 was created. Of course, this took a hit during the pandemic, but it's starting to come back in earnest. We've seen travel continue to pick up. And this ecosystem, just sort of, as you think about its impact, there's so many different people, drivers who bring diplomats together to a meeting and act with the utmost confidentiality, because oftentimes, as you think about it, someone has long trips from place to place, and they may be in a car alone. Who are they talking to? They're talking to the driver, or they're talking to the security guard. They're sharing what they're thinking, and that person is upholding their confidence and discretion. They get to a hotel and they're meeting with a bellhop or a waiter or a front desk agent. They're in a meeting and being served by a banquet server, a boat captain, a pilot. So our business is wide and diverse, and it includes people from really all walks of life. So really believe that these the hospitality and diplomacy are connected integrally through through many different areas. And so I conclude with what I'll call my sort of give back moment. So we operate in our company, Belmont operates in the luxury space. We create experiences in hotels and in trains and river barges around the world. But what I like to say is we take care of the arbiters of justice, the people who make decisions. I think what's important is in hospitality, we also take care of the recipients of justice. And someone who does that really well is Jose Andres. For those who are familiar in the States, Jose created a nonprofit called World Central Kitchen. World Central Kitchen's mission is to change the world through the power of food. And Jose likes to sort of think of himself, or others people describe him as a diplomat who is a chef. And Jose goes into disaster zones to cook for people, realizing that at the core, again, back to this needs assessment, at the core, when people are struggling, they need food. They want a hot meal. They want someone to come in and cook for them. It's a very basic need, but he was finding in many of these disaster zones that really the idea of good food was missing. And so Jose created World Central Kitchen. Jose is a restaurateur who has a number of fine dining concepts. He has 3 Michelin star restaurants. He trained under Ferran Andrea at El Bulli. But so he takes care of the arbiters of justice, the people that we're working with, the diplomats. But he has not forgotten to really take care of the recipients of justice, the people who are struggling and who are in need. And I think we can all take inspiration from what Jose is doing, and we can really take his mission and the mission of our industry to really change the world together. So thank you for your time. I think I'm right on about 13, 14 minutes. So happy to spend a couple minutes answering questions. These are my contact details here. As was mentioned in the introduction, my role is to be a steward across our hotels, but really to facilitate these relationships. If you're looking to have an event, one of our properties, if you have a delegation who needs to host a retreat at one of our hotels, if you want to get away on, you're working with a diplomat and their spouse and they want to get away on vacation, these are the types of things that I can work across our whole collection, understanding, again, that focus on detail, that focus on etiquette, the focus on security. Those really, and logistics is my forte. So would be delighted to help explain more about our properties and work together. So thanks so much for your time. It really is wonderful to be here.
Thank you, Nelson. That was really, really robust in terms of all the areas you've mentioned. And they're quite really interesting, and I believe there'll be questions for you. So while we look, I think there are a few questions there. Ladonna, I don't know if you've, there are quite a few questions.
Yes, I was looking at them. I would like to say, you know, it's quite interesting the way we think about protocol and just how all the touch points really connect. You know, someone may not understand or realize why or how a hotel brand or a luxury brand talks about it, but he said it with just creating these experiences that help also extend the message that we want to portray or send across through our engagements, and that helps. One of the questions that we have, and I will tell you, he did talk about some of the things with the culinary experience. We will have a discussion. We'll hear from one of our speakers later in the week who will talk about that. And one of the questions is the top challenges in culinary diplomacy, which Nelson identifies during his personal experience in the hospitality industry. Nelson, can you talk about maybe one of those top challenges that you maybe identified?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is sort of an interesting one. Many of our hotels are located in more remote destinations. They're located on islands or away from big city centers. And so for us, sourcing of products is quite challenging, especially when people have specific needs and when those are short term. So you can imagine if we get word that a delegation is coming 72 hours before they arrive, and they have specific needs around types of tea that they're drinking or food or diets, sourcing that in a really short period of time is quite challenging. We're usually able to pull it off, but modes of transportation to get food in on islands tends to be barge or airplane. And brands that are familiar in one country are not necessarily in another. And with supply chain shortages, that sort of adds a whole nother element. So I think sourcing is probably the biggest one, but it's also designing our menus in our restaurants to really to appeal to a wide audience. To have a menu that's narrow, so people don't have too many choices, but then to really encourage folks to feel comfortable ordering something that they want. With our hotels, we're really operating in the top luxury segments. We should be able to give just about anything that somebody wants, have our culinary teams trained in how to cook that and ready to go. If somebody says, you know, I really don't want this type of fish, I want branzino and I want it grilled with a little bit of lemon and olive oil, it's something that we should be able to execute on with ease and quickly. And so I think the sourcing and then really the ordering, and it's training our staff to be comfortable with folks that may be looking for something else.
Okay, that's
really
good
point. Yes.
Yeah, there's another question, I believe. Yeah, we can take one more question. There's another question from Donatus Irogu. I think that's from Nigeria. He says to Nelson, what role did protocol and diplomacy play during COVID-19 and the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia? Anyways, protocol is more discussed in public sectors than in private sectors. Maybe just your thought, Nelson, because we're just not sure what you think.
Sure. Yeah, I think during COVID, it's interesting because the guest who was staying in our hotels changed. In some of our city centers and a few hotels that I highlighted, we still had diplomatic people coming from different countries. The reason they were coming often changed. So I think sort of, again, assessing why is somebody traveling and how can we make sure that we're taking care of them in a unique environment. So again, it sort of goes back to safety. What do they look for in the moment during the COVID situation? They weren't looking necessarily for a lot of face-to-face interaction. So we built an app that they can communicate and chat with the hotel for needs. And, so we limited face-to-face contact, contactless, extra cleaning of rooms and sanitization and those types of things. with the global conflicts with Ukraine and Russia and the like, we have to be mindful of we went through an interesting period where we wanted to be mindful of how we were marketing ourselves, because people were struggling in the world. And so I think we have to continually be culturally aware of what's happening and how our messaging mixes with what's happening in the world. And so that's something we're constantly aware of, is that we want to be mindful of how we portray our properties. Because really, we, to many people, are a retreat. We're a reprieve. We welcome people in for holidays. And when people are struggling in the world, we want to be mindful of how we communicate that so that it doesn't come off in the wrong way. So it's something we're continually mindful of, and want to be sensitive to all of our guests and those around the world who aren't our guests, who may see our marketing and understand that we are supporting those who are in need, and really, like Jose, bridging that gap between arbiters and recipients.
Nelson, thank you so much for that. This was just a wonderful presentation, really interesting. I am a foodie myself, and worked in the hospitality industry while serving in the military and afterwards. So this is something that is very near and dear to me, and I just can really see and hope everyone else has appreciated the information that you have provided. Thank you very much, and thanks for providing your contact information. If anyone has more questions for Nelson, he did provide his contact information, and we'll collect this and provide it to you as well for those who will definitely offer you to follow up with them next. So thank you so very much. Okay, next up, we will have Miss Jennifer Beckett. I'm excited to introduce Jennifer. Jennifer is, I would like to call her a personal friend of mine. She is currently the Director of Protocol for the Department of the Air Force, which manages and oversees 2 services. So it would be the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Space Force under the Office of the Director of the Secretariat. Ms. Beckett is responsible for developing and executing all policies associated with customs and courtesies and etiquette for both the Air Force and the Space Force. And she also serves as the senior official for the coordination and management and execution of all official events for the department. She advises the senior leaders for both the services and their staffs, and is the voice here in Washington, D.C. in the Pentagon for more than 100 protocol offices that support both services worldwide, and over 400 protocol officers, protocol specialists, enlisted aides who support these individuals just throughout the globe. Ms. Beckett is from New Jersey. She's very proud of that. And she began her career with the department in 2004 as a contractor working for the Missile Defense Agency. And then she entered the government after that, working with our Secretary of Defense. She was a protocol lead in the Secretary of Defense's office until she was hired to work with us in 2020 for the Space Force. And just most recently, the 2 offices for the Department of the Air Force and the Space Force have combined into a single protocol office. And I'm sure you guys can probably imagine the resource challenges they have, which brings us to her topic, the tale of 2 services, creating a protocol office from concept to execution. Without further ado, I turn it over to my friend and colleague, Jennifer Beckett.
Hello, hello, hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
We hear you and see you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, hello to all of my colleagues within the protocol profession. It is definitely a pleasure to be a part of this special inaugural event, the World Protocol Matters Virtual Conference. I'm really excited about it. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to the Myers Associates, Ladonna, again, close personal friend, to the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy, to the World Protocol magazine, for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful meeting of the minds today. Again, as LaDonna stated, my name is Jennifer Beckett. I currently serve as the Director of Protocol for the United States Department of the Air Force, in which I am responsible for all things protocol for 2 military services, the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force, which is the newest service here in our country in the United States. I was originally hired in 2020, as LaDonna stated, by the Space Force, the newest service, to open and establish their protocol shop. But in April of this year, our department decided to merge the 2 service protocols, and I was selected to now lead both those offices as a combined office for the department. So I'm really excited to take on this challenge. In today's session, we'll talk about the tale of 2 services, creating a new protocol office from concept to execution. And to kick off my presentation today, I would like to play this quick 30-second video from the U.S. Space Force. In it, General John Raymond, who is our Chief of Space Operations, he expresses the challenges of the service and why space is hard. So let's check it out. I'm going to share my screen.
You know, space is hard. It used to be all we had to worry about was astrophysics, Kepler's law, gamma rays, solar flares, rocket science, black holes, and the theory of relativity. But now we also track about 30,000 objects, orbiting at over 17,500 miles an hour. And our entire way of life depends on us to protect our satellite from attack day and night. So yeah, space is hard.
All right, that was just a quick video there. It's our recruitment video that we use for the United States Space Force.
It's a new way to renovate your bathroom. It's an all-in-one platform.
All right, let's close that out. All right, so that was a quick video from the United States Space Force that we use for recruitment purposes. But I know for us in our service area, we love to walk around our building to say space is hard. But I like to challenge that and say not only space is hard, but protocol is even harder. So not only do we need to align with the priorities of our service as developed by the Chief of Space Operations, but we also must always consider the veins of our existence, that we are the ambassadors of engagements we produce for our distinguished guests, and that we are responsible for the management of 3 major factors for our guests. The first factor is we must manage emotions and feelings of our guests. We don't always know what emotions our distinguished guests are feeling when they arrive to our event or activity. So we need to be prepared to manage those emotions or feelings as it relates to the purpose of their business with our leadership. We must also manage expectations of our guests. It is our responsibility to ensure our guests are prepared when they arrive at our events, whether it's coordinating parking, access, weather, food allergies, aversions, seating. Our goal is to make sure all of our senior principals and distinguished guests are prepared to participate in the event or activity so that the goal or the mission of the meeting of the event can be achieved by the senior principals. And we also must manage the experience of our guests. We want to create a positive and memorable experience so that when they want to return and conduct more business with our organizations. So establishing this foundation of purpose as to why, as protocol officers, we do what we do, it helps set the vision for the protocol office, as well as the overall goals and objectives that should carry you through your daily operations. And if you look at the role of a protocol officer, one would realize that the world's entire way of life in any culture does depend on us, the protocol professionals and diplomacy officers of the world who make the magic happen when designing our events and hosting distinguished guests. And with the establishment of a new office, we need to ensure that we set a solid foundation to provide exceptional support so that the service or organization can achieve their overall mission. Just as the Chief of Space Operations set a list of priorities for the United States Space Force, we are empowering a lean and agile service. We're developing joint warfighters in a world-class teams. We're delivering new capabilities at operationally relevant speeds. We're expanding cooperation to enhance prosperity and security. And we're creating a digital service to accelerate innovation. We, as the Protocol Office supporting these priorities, must establish tools in developing a high-class support system for the senior leadership, and we must be prepared for the incredible high up-tempo of all the engagements that the service leadership, as well as the service workforce, will need to conduct with individuals, both foreign and domestic. And we are keys to all of those factors. So here are my tools for a successful protocol startup. I'm actually going to share my screen once again. So my tools for a successful protocol startup. First off, of course, we need to have a vision. In order to reach your destination, you need to know where you're going. But not only do you need to know where you're going, you also need to know where you come from. In our case, we have been birthed out of the United States Air Force. So we also look back at the overall service of what has worked or what hasn't worked, and how can we modify, how can we improve, how can we refine processes and policies. So we also need to establish that vision so that we can lead the service to a new height. We need to set goals and objectives. We need to set milestones for our teams. We want to continue to be in a process of always achieving or stepping up or refining or moving up to the next level. We also need to coordinate office structure. We need to organize and organize and organize. We need to set up the office organization chart. We need to establish a chain of command. We need to begin to set forth processes and how we want to address any situation that we come up. And we also need to establish policies and processes. What policies will we follow? As I stated earlier, we're birthed out of the Air Force. So some of the regulations or instructions or directives that the Air Force has already established, some of those we may utilize, but we also may refine them to match the time of the day in this day and age. What processes will we use? How do we plan to get things done? We need to set up a process so that the routine is established for supporting our senior leadership and that the goals are accomplished. And of course, this is a big one, hire great people. People are our #1 resource and asset. So we need to look for individuals that love to work in the field, look for strengths and weaknesses and see how we can either improve or build on top of those strengths. And of course, we need to promote unity and collaboration between our team members, our vendors, our partners, and anyone that we work with on a daily basis so that we can continue to build the relationships, which is a key factor in the protocol profession all the way around. And then we need to develop a solid rapport. We need to establish reputation with our senior leadership, with all of our vendors and the workforce, and of course our industry partners, our international distinguished visitors. Once we establish that rapport, then we develop a reliable and consistent performance reputation so that they know that if they ever need assistance, they know exactly who to go to. And that once they come to us, that they know that we would get the job done. And then of course, we need to execute all of our events flawlessly. We need to plan, 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 try to be proactive in all of our planning and do our best to limit our mistakes or downfalls. And then finally, in establishing a new office, we need to maintain consistency. We need to be consistent in all the services that we provide. We need to be reliable and dedicated to the mission so that we can make sure that our senior leadership and the workforce can concentrate on their jobs as far as delivering the missions and the requirements that we set forth out to support the service. And one of the specific challenges of the U.S. Space Force is to establish its own identity within the department, aside from its Air Force sibling. The U.S. Air Force, established in 1947, will be celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. So there's a lot of focus on the Air Force activities and events in 2022. But the U.S. Space Force continues to steadily move along to grow in its own identity and to step beyond the shadows of the Big Brother Air Force. The Protocol Office has an important role to play in this development of the service as the senior leadership continues to engage with their counterparts all over the world and partner in joint warfighting efforts in the space domain. So I hope you learned a little something from the presentation this morning. And I just want to close out of my presentation by saying Semper Supra, which means always above.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that great presentation. I know it's interesting to watch just being on the inside here, as you stated, just taking this new role on in April. You gave us an overview of what the Space Force requirements were, establishing the Protocol Office. I mean, really from just a concept, in there. And I know you're still establishing that. So one of the questions we have here is, with that challenge, what were some of the new requirements in terms of designing maybe precedents or information for your Protocol Office for a new service? The Air Force has been around, but how did you, or how are you and your team establishing and tackling those requirements for creating the same type of precedents and so forth for the Space Force?
So yeah, so of course, because the Air Force has been around, of course, they have established policies. They have established orders of precedence. So we are working our way to integrate all of, specifically with order of precedence, we're looking to integrate all of our senior leaders into create one master list for the department now that enlists everyone in their proper order compared to their counterparts on the Air Force side. As far as policies and regulations are concerned, we are actively working to update all of them because some of them are a little antiquated. So of course, we need to consider the day and age that we're in now. Of course, we are more technologically advanced, so we need to include some of those updates. But some of the other regulations that we are working on, we need to just add the Space Force as now an entity within the department that also needs to be addressed in a lot of those policies and procedures.
Great, thank you. There was another interesting question here that I found that says, protocol is centered more on culture despite the mission and the vision. What is the social contract between protocol and people? And I will add to this, just knowing that, I see this is coming from the international community. How do your leadership connect or relate to their international counterparts, and do they?
Oh, they actually do. So we just completed just recently, earlier in April, a international space chiefs forum where all the counterparts for the space organization, the space services, because there are some countries that are also establishing their own space force. There are some countries that are still operating, or their space force is operating still under the auspice of the Air Force in their country. And our Chief of Space Operations has extended relationships with a lot of these air chiefs that are either moving over into the space realm or have already established the Space Force. So their space chiefs are working together to collaborate on our joint warfighting efforts. As you know, there's a lot of countries with satellites out beyond the Earth, out in the space. We deal with cyber as well. So I know our senior leadership is constantly meeting with other countries across the whole globe. We have a meeting with Norway coming up soon. We just met with Lithuania. Let's see, we met with France many a times. There's just a few countries that we list, but we've probably hit about 26 to 56 different countries regarding joint and collaboration purposes for taking care of what we need to take care of for our mission requirements.
Wow, that's fantastic. And it's also good to note and to hear, right? Because we just have so many protocol professionals here on the line. I just keep seeing the hellos from Egypt, hello from everywhere. It's really exciting for me. And for those who don't necessarily work with protocol in a military capacity, this is just this perspective from two of our services here in the United States. Let me see if I have any new questions that have come through before we turn it over.
No, I don't think so.
Our next speaker. This is fantastic. Thanks, Patricia, for checking. I was just double checking in the Q&A as well.
I think there is one from a Miss or Marwa Magdi.
Okay, maybe that just came in.
Let's see.
And her question, or his question, forgive me, since most communication is done online, how do you ensure the communication between the staff and the external entities abides by and complies with your agency protocol policy?
Great question.
Yeah, awesome. And communication is huge, especially one thing that I've found in my experience is that it's really important to basically communicate with the field. While we're positioned at the headquarters, of course, we have field offices across the nation, across the globe, actually. But it's really important that they do not feel like they're just on an island by themselves, that they have a resource to tap into. So we heavily, obviously, use email, and we definitely try to attend events like these, like this conference and other protocol conferences, so that we can make sure we stay up in the times with all that the protocol industry is, all the issues that are being researched and addressed. We try to make sure they're also informed. I'm very big on the communication piece as far as all of our field offices, because I think I have about now 25 field offices that I need to be concerned about to make sure that they're basically following the policies and processes that we've established from the headquarters. So for me, I'm working to establish a consistent communication resource by conducting a what we call all calls, where we'll send out dial-in information for all of our offices to dial in, and then we have pretty much a focus group session. We may talk about a specific issue. We may open up the floor so that they can provide us with feedback on what they're experiencing out there in the field, because obviously for us sitting in the headquarters, we may not see or experience a lot of the hardships or even the kudos that they're getting out in the field. So we want to make sure we just open those lines of communication with them so that they know they can reach back to the headquarters and always find a resource to either address the situation or get help, or if they need to find out more information. And hopefully that answered your question.
I just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Jennifer. That was quite really a beautiful presentation there, and you've highlighted a lot of interesting things. And I just thought I should say thank you for sharing all of those information.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Having you
much.
as many times as possible. I think we have Honorable SalwaSahloul. I'm not sure if you wanted to ask. I've been seeing your hand. So sorry about that. I wasn't sure. Okay, let's hear your question.
Just thank you for Nelson and Jennifer for the presentation. Just an ad, especially for Jennifer, because she works in the military field and I worked in this field. And a good point she tell about us, how we have to make those people and those guests or this honorable feel comfortable. Okay, this is about communication and empathy. But sometimes in military field, when some authority or general is obsessed of about an incident, the protocol, we will assume this fault, and we don't speak about that. An investigation and a punishment against the protocol. Sometimes he is not the responsible. So we have to protect protocol from this misunderstood or this false. He haven't to assume this fault. He do her best to make people comfortable, to make guests comfortable, to make honorable comfortable. Second thing, I suggest that as a recommendation, it's about how to provide psychological assessment to the chief of protocol, because we work hard, we have to be attentive, we have to be productive, we have to be in communication, we have to respond to the text and to the mailing, and we return to our house with all this huge responsibility. How we can assist protocols, or as Nelson in culinary diplomacy, to have this mitigation of stress. We have to provide to the job of protocol psychological assist. Thank you.
Honorable Salwa, you make some very good points. And this is another topic in discussion we hope for our next conference that you will touch on. Having worked with the military protocol in the Army, in the Air Force for myself, I know that this is something that all of us, not just working with the military, but specifically you talked about it for the military, how we do own these feelings of our generals, of those world leaders that we support. So thank you for that. And I'll make a note to myself here sometimes to kind of talk about that, because that wellness and mindfulness that we all must adopt to help us perform at top at our jobs is very, very critical. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Very critical for women officials, because I worked as official and protocol. You have to pay attention to your hair, to your uniform, to your left, to your. It's about details, and for women, it's not easy. I repeat. Thank you again, Jennifer. You do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
So now I will turn it over to Ms. Nicoletta Hasso to introduce our next speaker. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. It was a lovely and insightful, very interesting presentation, and we are not going to move too far away from military protocol. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you Alex Lawani from Hungary. He is the managing partner at Interlex Communications. Alex has about 40 years of protocol interpreting experience at high-level governmental and multilateral events. He worked at high-level events as interpreter, for instance, at the NATO summits in 2009, 10, and 12, at the UN Food and Agriculture projects, during NATO defense ministerial meetings, at EU ministerial meetings on security and defense in Brussels. And just a couple of highlights during his career. His VIP assignments include, for example, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ursula von der Leyen, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Shimon Peres, Jose Manuel Barroso, Charles Shimoni, and many other NATO Secretary Generals, and of course some of the celebrities, sports professionals, Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen, Robert Kubica, Nico Rosberg, F1 drivers, and of course Tony Curtis when he was here in Budapest. So, ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Alex Lawani, and his topic is going to be protocol in interpretation and interpretation in protocol. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicoletta, for this very generous and kind introduction. So good morning, good evening to all of you. My name is Alex Lawani, and first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the fantastic performance, the fantastic job they've done, and of course, also thank the participants for being here with us. Now, really, after such an introduction, Nicoletta, I think it's hard to say anything, but let me just give you a background why I'm going to talk about the topic of interpreting and protocol. Now, I come from an international family background, and this will matter later on. This is why I'm starting with this. Actually, I'm from a mixed family. My mother's family is Hungarian and German. My father's family is Ghanaian and British. My parents are doctors, therefore, even in my childhood, we used to live in different countries. They worked for international organizations, WHO and so forth. So I actually was born in Hungary, and then I was like 4 years old when we moved to the UK, and then Ghana. We spent some time in France, Germany, Algeria. Now, why this is important is because the essence of what I'm going to say is that everything comes down to intercultural communications. Now, this is what I love actually, and this is what I always say when it comes to protocol. Now, why I became an interpreter? Now, this is important. Since my early childhood, my passion has always been history. And I've been, reading a lot of history books and watching programs, history programs. And then once, I think I was a high school goer, I just saw a footage about the Nuremberg trial, which followed World War II. Obviously, this is when the Nazi perpetrators were prosecuted. And that was the first time, actually, that simultaneous interpreting was used in masses, in high volume, in a professional manner. And I just saw that, all those war criminals were there. And then the judges, the panel of judges, they were also there. And then when someone was and also there was a picture about the interpreters with headphones, headsets, and everything. And then I realized that, whenever Goering was talking, the justices, the judges, did not really hear what he was saying, but rather was listening to the interpreters. So I thought, now this is when you're really part of history. So I thought I want to be an interpreter, and I also want to be there at events like that to be part of history. I have to say that been there, done that. So it really did happen. Now, again, what I did, started to work as an interpreter, and then established my own communications company, and then joined the Association of International Protocol Professionals, the president, the chairman of which is our dear host, Nicoletta Hosso. And then I also specialized, so I became a military interpreter in what I'm really good at, I think, in addition to protocol, is defense and security. And my aim now is to set up a formal training for military and delegation interpreters, because it will matter, and it really does matter in course of delegations. Now, why talk about interpreting in connection with protocol? This is what I'm going to cover. I'm also going to cover the role and importance of interpreting, and I'm also going to try to sort of touch upon the issue whether interpreting is part of protocol or not. Now, why? And then the last thing is what is expected, what is required from protocol professionals, heads of protocol, chiefs of protocol, and the interpreters as well, in order to form a good team and to really have a good performance at the end of the day. Now, let's just go back a little bit in history and see how interpreting and the profession itself developed. The Honorable Salwa already mentioned Egypt, and in the first presentation, and we heard about, you know, the origins of protocol in Egypt. Now, origins of interpreting or translating also go back to Egypt, not only to Egypt, but that's the first instance, that the first era that we have written confirmation of this profession existing, and this was in the 3rd millennia before Christ, so like 5,000 years ago. There was a tomb inscription or a grave inscription which said head of the interpreters, which proves that there were interpreters already in ancient Egypt. But of course, we could go back much further, you know, the Tower of Babylon. We could go, I mean, it is almost as old, I think, as history, or at least as old as different languages exist and communications between different languages exist. The first interpreter who became famous was a lady, by the way, who goes by the name of La Malinche. Original name might have been Marina or Malintzin, and she was a Nawa woman, so from the Nawa tribe, and she lived in the Aztec Empire. She was born around 1500, so like 500 years ago. And she died quite young, age of 29, 30 or something. And she became the interpreter of Cortes, the conquistador, during when the Aztec Empire was actually put down by Cortes. La Malinche became very famous. She was the one who interpreted between the invaders and the defenders, and then later also made it to Europe. She became, again, very famous, so she's the first interpreter whom we know by name. Now, why, again, to the first question, why talk about interpreting in connection with protocol? Now, protocol is a form of international communications, and together with etiquette, it is a common language. It is a lingua franca. It's a form language at the same time. And what we do by that is we mediate, we relay, we transmit thoughts, messages. Just think of a wide table, just think of a formal event, just think of the dress code that you have in protocol. Whenever there's a dress code and you have to wear this and that, or ties or no ties, or formal, informal, this all sends a message. These are all very important messages. It's a form language, and this is what you do with protocol. Interpreting, you do the same. You're actually relaying between languages. You're relaying between cultures. You can do it the right way. You can do it the wrong way. Sorry, I was muted. Just don't. Okay, so it really does matter. Now, so the role of the two, I'm not saying is the same, but actually there's a convergence, and one could barely exist without the other. when we talk about a protocol, if it's in an international environment, you normally need interpreters. Of course, that is changing. We know that more and more international communications will be in English. Earlier, other languages were used, like, language of diplomacy used to be French. So we might think that this might change as well by time. Now, anyway, protocol and interpreting in the current setup, the current international setup, one wouldn't go without the other. And if you get it right, then, the interpreting, then all good, then everything is okay. But if you get it wrong, if there is problem with interpretation, then all other efforts you put into an event, into a protocol event, would be undermined and compromised. Now, I'm going to return to that when I talk about what is expected from one party and the other to make it well. Again, interpreting. Probably remember that Sting has a song by the title of Russians. And in that song, there is a quote, which quote is attributed to Nikita Khrushchev, saying, "Khrushchev said, we will bury you," which is quite a nasty thing. It goes as the song goes. Now, this phrase or this quote is actually a result of a translation error. The interpreter just made a mistake. By the way, all interpreters do make mistakes, the best ones as well, including myself. Anyway, the interpreter who translated the words of Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev, in 1956, was a very, very famous interpreter, a very good interpreter, widely recognized by international political figures and actors, because he was an interpreter to not only Khrushchev, but later on he was also the interpreter of Brezhnev and also Gorbachev, by the name of Viktor Sukhodrev. Now, what was meant by Khrushchev when he said, "We will bury you," referring to the West, referring to the Western societies, in Russian, this is an expression which would correctly translate, "We shall be present at your funeral," or "We shall outlive you," which obviously is a bit milder, a bit softer than "we shall bury you," meaning that we will kill you. So this is not what he meant when he said that, but there was a great uproar. Obviously, everyone was very upset about this, and a lot of analysts considered this to be a nuclear threat. Yeah, that reminds me of other things. Anyway, but so what happened? He said, "We will bury you," in Russian, and the interpreter who had to translate that out of the blue just translated it in verbatim, but the meaning was different. Now, this is not the only mistake that we know in history. Just from my own practice, I remember when there was a meeting between heads of state, Hungary and the neighboring country. I'm not going to name the neighboring country. And then what happened was that the neighboring country's head of state or head of government said that, okay, solution to ethnic problems might be to resettle the ethnic minorities into the country of origin, which again was very much upsetting, and it made it to the headlines immediately. And then shortly after, there was a communique by the foreign ministry of the given country saying that this is not what the head of state or head of government had said. This was just a mistake in interpreting. And then the interpreter obviously had to agree with that. I know the interpreter, I know it was not a mistake, but that's also part of the profession. Sometimes interpreters are used to be a buffer. It quite often happens that both parties do speak English. Let's say there is a Hungarian and a Polish delegation meeting, both do speak English. Despite that, they would use an interpreter, partly for the reason I mentioned, and partly in case the other party is a native English speaker, they don't want to give the advantage to the other party of using their mother tongue and one party using a foreign language. So this is another reason why they're using interpreters in diplomacy and in delegation. And also, if just imagine this situation, if there is a, let's say, a German member of delegation meeting with a American statesman. Now, if there is an interpreter and the German happens to speak English, then during the interpretation, or because of the interpreting, the first party would have twice as much time to think about the answer, to formulate the answer properly. So again, it is a useful thing. And last but not least, it is also a matter of courtesy. So if, for example, a Croatian delegation comes to Hungary and you provide a Croatian interpreter, then you're showing respect to your guest. So it is very important. There was another, which I have to mention, another error in interpreting, and this was in my practice, and it was very, very sensitive. There's a party in Hungary called Momentum, and there was a well-known American speaker of Hungarian origin talking about current politics, and mentioned that Europe needs momentum. And then I just thought that when he mentioned momentum, he was referring to the party that I mentioned. And obviously it was mistranslated. Now, since this was live broadcast on television, which is one of the most difficult things to interpret, I didn't have the opportunity 30 seconds later, when I understood that that's not what he meant, I didn't have the opportunity to correct myself subsequently and say that, sorry, that was not what the speaker meant. Now, again, whenever you come across interpreters and an interpreter claims not to have committed mistakes or errors of that nature in his or her career, then don't employ that interpreter, because that is obviously false and not true. Now, again, back to the question, because I see that my time is quite tight. So back to the question, what is expected from the parties in order to make the whole effort good? First of all, whenever you're head of protocol, you're chief of protocol, or you're the head of a protocol at an event, even though you might not be the chief of protocol, what matters is think in terms of a team. It's always a team effort. And what we're really prone to do is that we think in silos. Everyone focuses and concentrates on the job he or she is supposed to do without regard to others. Now, you always have to think in terms of teams as opposed to silos. And this includes that if you're a head of protocol, you'd also take into account that, yes, interpreting matters, not only protocol matters, but also interpreting matters. So, for example, if there is a motorcade, you wouldn't put the interpreter in the 8th car in the motorcade, because the interpreter wouldn't make it to the meeting when it was actually with the American Defense Secretary and the Hungarian Minister of Defense when they met. It took me like 50 seconds to get from my car to the red carpet where they met, and I was supposed to be there immediately. So again, if you're head of protocol, chief of protocol, think of these things as well. Think of the seating or the seats, the sitting order. Another important thing, think of water and food to be provided to the interpreters, especially when it's a delegation event, because quite often it happens that they wouldn't get anything to drink or eat throughout the day, and that would make their performance worse, which is obviously not the order. And then another important thing is to provide the interpreter with briefs, with background material, and not only think in terms of need to know basis, because if the interpreters understands the objective of the meeting, understands the goal that is to be achieved, then he or she would translate and interpret accordingly and would make a much better job. Actually, interpreters quite often go to areas of operation. I've been to Afghanistan, to Iraq, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. When you're working in a, you're working with the military, and then that requires a totally different stance, a totally different behavior. This is why I said that it would be important, and in some countries that exists, to have special training and education for military interpreters, delegation interpreters. And again, when I say that we think in terms of teams, whenever the delegation is small, so you don't have, the business jet is quite small, you can have only 10 people on board, therefore you probably don't have the photographer, you don't have certain functions are missing. I, beside interpreting, would also shoot photos and send it to my communications department, despite the fact that it's not my job otherwise as an interpreter. But of course, I understand that this is a team effort, therefore we have to do it together. And if you do it together, if you think in terms of teams, both the head of protocol and the interpreters, then the result is going to be good, or at least much better. Now, that much I wanted to tell you about interpreting and protocol. Of course, there is more to it, but our time is up, as I see, in a couple of minutes. And I'd rather answer questions if they come. Yeah. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alex. It was a wonderful, wonderful presentation highlighting the importance interdependent relationship between the protocol professionals and the interpretation professionals, because teamwork makes dream work, and it's entirely true. No matter how hard we try as protocol professionals to put the puzzles together and work for the success of the event, if the interpreter is not on time, is not prepared, we haven't contributed to the preparation of the interpreter, we haven't sent them the necessary materials, the background materials on the actual meeting or the event. So this is crucial, because if the two leaders or the heads of the delegations do not understand each other, then obviously it's hard to communicate and move on. We had a question from Donatus. He's asking, what is your worst mistake in your profession as an experienced interpreter, and if any, how did you handle it?
Well, again, thank you for that question. That's a great question. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so that's a great question. And well, I don't know, I'm a bit ashamed whenever I commit mistakes. So, but let me give you two. So one was this momentum thing. But again, it's not about the specific thing that I mistranslated. It is about the genre. The genre is a live broadcast, interpreting live broadcast. So if there is a live program on TV, like, they live broadcast the meeting between the president of the United States and the president of another country. When there's a live broadcast, or just recently from the US, there was the CPAC, or before that, the presidential candidate debates from the US. Now, that was the most difficult thing to interpret when the two candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, had the debate. And of course, you had to speak for both of them. There was crosstalk a lot of times. And also the MC, or the host, the moderator, there was like three people talking, sometimes crosstalk. Now that's very difficult. And the problem is that if you realize that you might have committed a mistake, since it's live broadcast, you cannot undo it. You cannot repair it. That happened with the, as I said, with this momentum thing. But again, one of the worst things was when I confused the names of two leading soft beverages companies. Well, okay, I mean, come on. Let's be just open and outspoken. So it was the two cola companies, I mean, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, and I was interpreting. I was on stage, which is another difficult thing when you're on stage, you're put on the spot. And then there was a very, very, very lengthy speech. My notepad was full. I couldn't make notes any longer. And then they said, okay, thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Joe Brown, the president of Coca-Cola Europe, or probably the other way, I don't know, which I translated Joe Brown, the president of Pepsi-Cola Europe. Now, that was the worst thing, because when you're sitting in the studio and you're translating a live broadcast, at least no one is there. So, you know, you made that mistake, but no one is there to, you know, yeah, so to give you the reactions. But there was a huge crowd there and there was an uproar. Oh. And then, you know, that was really the worst thing. And of course, if you just surf the net, you will find a lot of mistakes committed by interpreters. As I said, this was a very, very characteristic one, the "we will bury you" thing, despite the fact that, as I said, this was one of the best interpreters in the world, Mr. Sukhodrev, Victor Sukhodrev. So anyway, these things happen, and if anyone denies it, then that's not really telling the truth.
Thank you so much again, Alex. If there is any more questions, then please feel free to submit them in writing. And at the same time, let me draw your kind attention to a wonderful comment made by the head of international affairs of the Egyptian Competition Authority at the Egyptian Prime Ministry. And it's in the chat box. You can just read it afterwards. He's just saying and indicating how they prepare their interpreters and how they make sure that the interpreters and protocol professionals can work together and cooperate for the success of the event. It is a wonderful, wonderful